Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Kathleen Gramzay is back for our Wednesday Wellness series, and we're continuing the conversation on self-empowered health as it relates to survival mode. So Kathleen, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. We've been talking about emergency mode, and when it's under acute stress, when we're needing to meet a challenge, it's spectacular. If we have to do a presentation or we have an emergency, it is perfectly designed. Where things go awry is when we go into that continuous triggering that happens through chronic stress. And really, that's when we see those patterns that are very predictable of our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors, and then what happens, physical conditions relative to fight, flight, or freeze. So do you remember the movie The Matrix?
I do. It's been a while since I've seen it, though.
Right. It has been a minute, right? But what was in that movie, humanity was unknowingly in a simulated reality. And in essence, chronic stress is like that, because our thoughts and our emotions and our senses, everything is telling us we're under threat. And what happens is that we have this internal pharmacology of hormones and neuropeptides and neurotransmitters, and they are all working. And so they are producing those chemicals that relate to anxiety and overwhelm and frustration and anger. So have you ever been like watching a movie on the couch? And do you know how you've had the feeling where you're like so engrossed in the movie, you're not aware, you don't have any awareness that you're on the couch until it's done. You're like, oh, I'm here. Have you had that?
I have, for sure.
Right? So we forget, right? We lose our awareness of where we are. And really, that's what often happens when we're in survival mode, because all of our attention is literally in those thoughts and feelings. We don't know, we don't remember that we're not those thoughts and feelings, but we feel like we are. And so it is this circle and cycle that happens. And so we get caught up in it. We can forget that it's actually an auto programming that's going on in the nervous system that is not us. It's happening in us. And what can make it really tough, though, honestly, is the fact that our bodies are producers, right? They want to be able to continue to make something automatic pilot to make things easier. However, when it comes to being in this chronic mode of stress, then those chemicals for those emotions and those feelings keep reproducing. And so we get more stuck in those patterns, and it can be really difficult to even have awareness that you're not those. And here's the good news, though. Just like Neo in the movie, right? Just like he had a prime power, we have prime powers. We have two. Our prime power to get ourselves out of the matrix of survival mode is, number one, our awareness, noticing when we are having those thoughts or those feelings. We all know what ours are, typically like our go-to ones, right? Paying attention to those. The second biggest power we have is our will. And the will has to be used in that moment to say, oh, I'm doing this. I'm going to shift myself right now. I'm going to get up. I'm going to move. I'm going to look into the eyes of somebody I love. I'm going to make myself laugh. I'm going to do something right now. I'm going to go take a walk. I'm going to do something right now to shift myself out. Understanding full well that you're in the matrix of these feelings. I don't want to. It's horrible. My life sucks, or whatever it is. You have to be stronger than the matrix of the chemicals that are flowing in your body and say, no, we're going to do this. So the great news is, every time you feel gratitude, every time you do that, you are internally changing your chemical balance. You are doing that without taking anything. You are changing your chemicals. And the more you're willing to do it, the more you start to have your automatic pilot on the other side, the restoration side, right? That starts to flow more, and then we get back into those patterns. And basically, we have to do something different to have something different, and it takes will and awareness. But man, if you use it, you have more power than you know to shift your state of being.
So for our listeners, do you have a specific challenge of the week or something that you would encourage them to be a little bit more mindful of?
I sure do. And it's just doing those two things. Notice, first of all, actually, I'm going to say to you first, write down right now, before you walk away from your wherever you are right now, write down your go-to shifter, right? It's singing, it's looking at your child's face, it's a happy video, I don't care, whatever it is, write it down right now, what's your go-to, so that you have it ready. And then every time you notice that you are going into one of your modes of survival, the survival matrix, you do one of those things. And then how you can solidify it is at the end of the day, write down in a journal, write down what happened, what was the trigger, what you did to shift it, and then notice as you continue to do it and you start to change that pattern, how differently your perspective of life becomes.
Wonderful. Well, as we look to wrap up today's conversation, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
That's it for today. Just understand that you have more power than your matrix does, and you have the power to shift yourself every time you decide to do so. You can make a difference for yourself.
Wonderful. Well, Kathleen, thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure.